Hi everybody, my name is Debbie O'Neill and I'm on Google's University Programs team, and welcome to our first Hangout on Air live from Google Ireland, which is the headquarters for Europe, Middle East and Africa. So I'm here to host our first ever Hangout on Air entitled A Day in the Life of an SMB Account Strategist. And I'm joined with some awesome Googlers from within our SMB organization. So for those of you who may not be aware of that acronym, SMB actually stands for small to medium businesses. And that is the main entry route for any new grad into our non-technical side of the Google organization. So guys, maybe we should do some introductions. So maybe we'll kick off here in Dublin. So Adam, if you want to tell us a bit about yourself.
Absolutely, Deborah, yeah. So my name is Adam and I work on the SMB UKI team based in Dublin, as Deborah said, the European headquarters. I'm actually live in one of the really cool Hangout on Air studios that is unique to some of the Dublin offices, or some of the Google offices across the world. So I work in that team and I basically help a lot of agency accounts throughout the UK, mainly for the UK market. And that's basically what I do on a day-to-day basis. I assume we'll go into that in more detail in a few minutes.
Cool. Yeah. And also we have Isabel joining us. Where are you, Isabel?
Hello guys, I'm in Macedonia actually. So my name is Isabel, I'm French, I have 2 kids. And I'm the manager in SMB services for all Adriatics, including Macedonian market, and all the Baltic markets also. And today is actually a great day for me because this is exactly my 8 years Google anniversary.
Wow, happy anniversary, Isabel. That's fantastic. Here, 8 years, amazing, amazing.
Dinosaur time.
Fantastic. And just a reminder to our viewers, if any of you are interested in asking us any questions at all, please feel free to provide in the comments section just below any questions that you might have, and we really will do our best to try to cover them during this Hangout with you all. So maybe, Adam, our theme for this Hangout is a day in the life.
Yeah.
So maybe it would be great for students across the Europe, Middle East and Africa region watching this now, if you could explain to them what a typical day for you looks like within the SMB organization.
Yeah, sure. So your working week is Monday to Friday, generally in SMB Sales. And the working hours are normally 9 to 6 in the Dublin office. Now that's for the UK and Ireland market. Obviously, if you're working for the French team, you might start a bit later or a bit earlier, depending on what hours you actually service. So I would come in generally at 8:30. There are 3 canteens across the Dublin campus, so I get breakfast there, and so anyone that's hanging around, or I'd meet up with a few of the people on my team, go down and grab breakfast. 9 o'clock, generally you would come up and check your emails, and you'd also check client emails as well as internal ones. Then you would have a look at your target run rate, they're called, so basically your metrics that you're measured on every day. You check how you're doing there so you can plan your day and how you're actually going to achieve what you need to by the end of it. As well as that, you would look at your portfolio of accounts that you'll be treating and try to see which ones you'll actually be ringing up and seeing can you schedule a call with the end client or the media agency that day as well. So it's kind of a bit of planning. So then around 10 to 12 o'clock, you would start your phone calls. So that might involve a bit of cold calling, so proactively reaching out to clients that you haven't talked to before, or it might involve managing a relationship with an agency that you've built up over the past year, just to check in and see how the account is doing, if they need optimization advice, etc. Then you'd have an hour for lunch. So again, we have 3 cafes across the Dublin campus, so you'd be pinging people maybe from different parts of the organisation. By the way, pinging means GChat, for any of you that don't know, or Hangouts as it's now called. Bottom left-hand side of your screen on G+. So you have lunch, then you come back, and then generally you would have more calls, depending on how you set up your day. It could involve scheduled calls that you've already had, or it could also involve you proactively reaching out to other clients across your market. Besides that, there's always a team meeting to go to, or an agency, for example, product training I had last week. So any of the new products that are launching with AdWords, you're generally briefed on them quite quickly before they go out to market so that you know about them. As well as that, you'll have one-to-ones with your managers every 1 or 2 weeks. So one-to-one is basically where you sit down and review your performance, talk about anything you need to with your manager, anything that you might be concerned about. You would generally be honest and open about it and talk to them about it. And then generally towards the end of the day, you'll be wrapping up. So closing off emails and then logging out of your phone and then ready to go home by 6 o'clock generally.
Wow, it sounds like a very varied day that you have.
Yeah, no day is generally the same. Like you do the same things, but the things don't stay the same.
Fantastic. And I see that we have a newcomer to our Hangout. So Anna, nice to see that you could join us. So we were just chatting with Adam about what a typical day looks like for him at Google. So maybe if you could share some insights in terms of your day at Google and what that looks like.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. So my name is Anna, and I'm working for SMB Services team. In my team, we support the DACH market, so the German-speaking countries, Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. I've been at Google for over 3 years already, so I'm kind of one of the dinosaurs in the team. And how does my typical day look like? So in the SMB Services team, we support our advertisers, small and medium businesses, on 3 main channels. Our main channel for our customers, they can contact us, is phone support. We also offer email and chat support. Chat support was launched actually last year, so it's like one of the newest features we offer to our advertisers. And within our team, we are based in 2 sites, Wrocław and Dublin. So we work cross sites. So our colleagues from Dublin come to work an hour later than we. And we start, our phone lines are open for our advertisers from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. So we spend like, well, depending, of course, on the tenure in the team and on the role we have. So on average, about 50% of our time allocation on phone support and on chat and email support. We answer thousands of different queries from our advertising, starting from how to log in into my AdWords account and ending with how to implement the remarketing tag, for example. So recently we also started offering support for Merchant Center related queries to our AdWords customers. So this is also a new thing for us. And of course, besides of the core job, which is support for our advertisers, some of us also have some roles in the team. Like, for example, they are quality reviewers or CSAT coaches, or are responsible for setting up the workflow for the entire team. So depending, of course, on the need, we have a certain time allocation for those roles. And we also attend meetings for the whole team. We meet on a one-on-one basis with our managers to discuss our performance, our plans, our ideas. Yeah, so that would be actually it when it comes to split of tasks and responsibilities.
Fantastic. So Anna, you mentioned the word AdWords, and I'm conscious of the fact that we may have some viewers who don't even know what AdWords is. So maybe could I have a volunteer that could explain the AdWords platform and maybe the business model that Google has as well? That could be important for our viewers.
Yeah.
Anybody want to take that?
Yeah, I don't mind.
Sure, yeah.
So for everybody watching, AdWords is basically Google's platform for reaching people at the right place in the right time using paid advertisements. So that means that when you're on google.co.uk, google.ie, google.es, whatever country you're in and on the country's domain, you can generate text ads based on the keywords that you type in. So if you're looking for shoes, or if you're looking for a new coat or a new jacket, the first 3 results underneath the search dialog box will be advertisements, and at the right hand side there'll be about 5 or 6 as well. So that's basically what AdWords is. They're actually ads that are generated throughout the internet on Google's platform. But you can also, you've seen ads with display images, or images that use flash, or engagement ads, or all these different types of things that are actually not on the Google search engine. That's also called the display network. So that's another way that we have to reach other people that are not proactively looking for a product. So for example, if you're on the Washington Post reading the news, you could actually have ads to the left and right hand side from us that our clients have paid for to put their ads there. And that's basically what AdWords is.
Fantastic. Thanks, Adam.
Yeah.
So one of our mottos at Google is to do cool things that matter. So I'm curious to hear from our Googlers, are there any cool things that you guys have done that you'd like to share with our audience? So maybe we'll start with Isabel.
Cool things that I did and I would like to share with my audience. One cool thing that I did is that I'm responsible for all Adriatics markets, and the three main markets of Adriatics are Serbia, Croatia, and Slovenia. And one cool thing I'm doing right now is trying to expand actually this market to bring our values and our service to Bosnia, Macedonia, Albania, to expand to more countries, to be able to give phone numbers and ways to reach to us, to new customers who can look like future seeds, who are emerging markets. And we are the pioneer here to actually reach out to them and say, hey, Google AdWords does exist, and I think I have a solution for your business.
Fantastic. Thank you. Anna, is there anything that you'd like to share with us?
Well, maybe what would be worth mentioning would be this cross offices program, which is Google Serve, a program in which participate actually all Googlers from all around the world. It's taking place every year in spring, and those are different activities actually in every country. And here we also are engaged in some local activities, Googlers from the Wrocław office. Maybe what I can mention, for example, one of the activities we organized last year during last year edition of Google Serve, because I run frequently and I really love it. This is my hobby, and I managed to engage many people from the whole office to take part in a charity run taking place here in Wrocław, and this way we contributed to the charity organization, collecting money for them, and of course did something for us, for Googlers, for our health. And it was really cool thing looking how people train for this 10-kilometer race, and we're really happy about that.
Thanks, Anna. That sounds like it was a lot of fun that you guys had over there in Wrocław. And then, Adam, what about yourself? Any cool things that you've done?
Yeah, I think all Googlers can be quite different when they're hired. They like to do different things, as you can see from Anya's and Isabel's answers. I think I might give two examples just to give a core and non-core role example.
Yeah.
So in the core role, so I'm on part of the sales team for the UK and Irish market. So one of the cool things that I'm doing at the moment is working with my current agency team to improve our strategy for Q2. So basically that means how do we better treat our clients and our end customers better and quicker? How can we reach our targets better? And how can we actually delve deeper into our portfolios and make the most of it? And that can get quite complex and complicated, but it's actually really interesting to work with because it gives us scope into project management and other things that in your day-to-day job you mightn't get as much exposure to as you'd like. So that's a really cool thing that you can do. Non-core role goes on from Annie's point with Google Serve. So I would have worked a lot with the Googliness Give team in the later half of 2013 last year. And basically what I did is for a week we went out to a small town in Ireland to promote the Silver Surfer Towns project. So what we did was spent a week, we had a stand in a shopping centre, we were going out to retirement homes, we were going to schools to give educational talks about it, but also to recruit students to give an hour of their time a week to teach older people how to use the internet. And that was a really cool thing that we did because we actually saw the impact that Google can have in the community in giving free lessons and leveraging the kind of community atmosphere and feeling towards it. So that was really cool. I really enjoyed that.
Great. So it's brilliant to see that work-life balance is definitely a hot topic within the organization, and there seems to be a lot of opportunities for Googlers to do activities outside of their core roles, which is really cool and unique, I suppose. And
as well as that, I think managing expectations for everybody as well. Like as a Googler, you're hired into a specific role. So for example, I'm an SMB Sales person, and then Annie will be services and Isabel will be a manager. So we all have our core roles. It doesn't mean that we're out doing these projects 24/7. It's a percentage of your time that you have. So once you become efficient in doing your sales or services core tasks, you get the chance to go and do these really cool things as well. So it's really kind of rewarding in a way.
Yeah, fantastic. So you mentioned there that Isabel is a manager. So Isabel is also, by default, a hiring manager at Google. So I think our viewers would be interested in knowing what are some of the core skills or attributes that you look for in a future Googler?
Well, the first thing I would be looking for, because I'm hiring for SMB services or sales, is I would like to find somebody who is able to learn to become an AdWords specialist. AdWords is quite a rich product, so the first thing I would need for an ideal candidate is that this person is actually willing to learn and become an expert of this product. The second thing I will absolutely be looking for is somebody who cares. So we are here to solve issues that our customer may have, and then to add value and grow their businesses. So I need somebody who's able to listen. I need somebody who cares, who can become an AdWords expert. And then I want somebody, obviously, who can be a great team member, team player. You don't achieve things only as yourself here. You are working with teams with quite different personalities, with people who may be like, and still you need to be able basically to adapt to each personality and to grow with them. So I think Googliness, leadership, team player, being able to listen and to care for customers.
So Isabel, you mentioned the word Googliness there, and oftentimes we live in our own Google bubble. So maybe if you could explain what Googliness means to you.
Mm-hmm. Well, to me personally, because I know there is no one definition of Googliness, but Googliness is not only a synonymous of being cool. Googliness for me means you're able to do a very efficient job without thinking of yourself as seriously. So we're having fun, we're learning every day, but we're also efficient, and we're nice people, basically.
Very good. Okay, great. So hiring at Google is very much done by consensus. So everybody as part of the hiring committee has to agree on a hire. So I'm curious to hear maybe from Anna, what skills or attributes do you think a new Googler joining your team would need to have?
Actually, I also like one of the interviewers within our team, so I have a lot of contact with candidates, and I interviewed recently many people to our team, so I kind of know what we are looking for. Well, I would actually I can only quote what Isabel said, because this is actually the key here. People we are looking for should be first of all very open to new things, because people in SMB services will be working with a product that is constantly changing. This is constantly changing environment, and we really need to be always every day up to date, because sometimes it may happen that a very savvy customer from an agency will call us and will ask us question about a feature who was actually implemented a couple of days ago, and to really need to be very up to date with the product, with the newest features. And so we look for open people, open-minded people who are willing to learn, who are great team players, who also want to have fun at work, because we do cool things as a team. We have joined team events. We try to go out as often as possible because recently we got many new team members, so it is really important for us to integrate with them, to learn each other, and to be able to work as a great team.
Fantastic. Thanks, Anna. And Adam, do you have anything additional to add, or maybe, like, you're quite a seasoned interviewer now at Google. Are there times when candidates maybe didn't get through the process for particular reasons? What typically are those reasons that a candidate might not be successful?
Yeah, so there's a few things that can happen. Because I'm hiring for a sales team as well, so myself and the manager would sit down in the hiring committee and look for sales skills. That's the first thing we'd look for. And some people may do a really good interview but really fall down on the pitching side of things, or maybe lack experience in an actual target-driven environment.
So for the sales team, you're really looking for someone that has a passion for sales and
Yeah.
Okay.
And a passion for sales can be really ambiguous to different people. For example, some people might be really outgoing and extroverted, which would suit some clients, and other people might be really data-driven and introverted, but can still persuade people on the phone or have a good level of conversation with the customer.
Okay.
So I think one thing that students can do, because I know it's difficult if you don't have relevant experience on the sales side of things, or if you didn't have an internship in your college program, but the next time you're giving a university presentation, or the next time you have to do group work, or the next time you have to present in front of a group of people, try and do it as a sales pitch. That will really set you up well for a Google interview. So instead of presenting on the topic and giving the information, try and build your presentation around a pitch. Try and think of, how can I sell international business, or how can I sell philosophy to my audience? How can I get them interested, and how can I get them hooked at the end? That's probably the best thing you can do if you don't have any experience, because then you can bring that up in the Google interview and measure your impact. And I think that's something that candidates who have been rejected in the past have fell down on.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah. Thanks, Adam. So we actually have a question from one of our viewers. So Josephine in Madrid asks, and this is for you, Isabel. So she's asking, what does the hiring process look like at Google?
The hiring process is quite democratic, I would say, at Google. What we will usually have is that you will have a panel of interviews. So you may get interviewed via phone, via Hangout, or you may be coming on site after a while, basically. But the objective of that is that a panel of Googlers will basically ask you several types of questions. Usually you will have team members, which is just reflecting the fact that this person will actually be part of that team. So I want my team to give their opinion is like, do you want this person to work with you, actually? Plus, my team is basically the best interlocutor to meet with a new potential person, because they will be able to ask them, hey, what is it actually, this job? What are you doing in your daily life at Google? So they're here basically because they have the best insight about what is their job, and they can handle any questions that the candidate may have about the job. And then obviously you will have me as a manager interviewing you as well. And at the end of the day, we are striving for the best. So each interviewer has to be convinced that you are the best, and has to be ready to fight for you basically, and to say, I want this person, that's the best one. That's how it works.
Fantastic. Thank you, Isabel. So maybe, Adam, what exactly will a candidate go through when they actually apply online for a position with Google? What will the steps of that application process look like?
Sure, yeah. So if you apply directly on google.com/jobs, you'll be given the application form to fill out and your resume. If you are successful in that, then the recruiter will reach out to you to do a phone screen, so assess your willingness for the job. Do you know what the role is about? Very general questions. If the recruiter deems that you're to go forward and go through the process, you'll generally do a phone interview, which will involve you doing a sales pitch for the first half of a 30-minute phone call, and then competency questions, so very general interview questions for the last 15 minutes. If the person that does your phone interview thinks that you should be put forward into the next round, you'll do generally then 3 on-site interviews, or if you're not based in the country where we're hiring into, it might be a Hangout, so you'll do it over Hangout. So exactly like we're doing now on G+. So you'll do a face-to-face interview over VC. And then once that's it, your job is done, more or less. The recruiter then will reach out to you with an answer. Between the on-site interviews and the recruiter getting back to you, what happens is a hiring committee meeting. So all of your interviewers will meet together in a room and discuss how the interviews went, concerns, and what really went well, and we make a decision based at the end of that meeting. And that goes to the recruiter, and then the recruiter gives you the good news of an offer or the good news of a rejection. If you get the offer, and I know this sounds quite complicated, but it's actually very simple once you know the process like I do. Once you get the offer, once the offer goes off, it's sent to the executive committee. So this is a hiring committee based of really senior people at Google who review the information packs. So everything that happened right from when you submitted that application form up until you did your last interview, and hiring committee feedback is collected into this pack, which is online. They will review it. If they need something else, they will send it back to us, and then we will reach out to you if we need more information, or if they need more information from the interviewers. If they approve it, then the offer goes back out to you, and you can accept the offer or reject it, but we hope you accept if you get that far.
Okay, so the entire kind of process starts off with an applicant submitting a CV. So the CV, I suppose, is an area of huge discussion among students. So do you guys have any top tips for CV writing and that you might want to share with our viewers?
But I can take this one. I mean, the first step I would say is like spelling mistake is your enemy. Like if I'm looking for somebody who has fluent English, I will expect from you that your CV is spotless and is clear. I want to make sure that if you give it to an external eye, and I would actually advise you to do that, do your CV, work hard on it, nights to make it clear, and then give it to somebody who is totally different from you and say, what do you understand? Are you able to understand what actually I have as skills? And do you understand which type of job I may be looking for? Like I have candidates sometimes arriving to me and I can see the CV, oh, I'm passionate about marketing, I want to do my career, that's why I'm on this job. And I'm like, but hey, look, I'm looking for a customer relationship person, so why are you pushing to me that you want to do marketing? Maybe in the future, but right now, what do you want from this job? And this, I would expect to see it in the CV, basically.
Great insight there. And Adam, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I would back Isabel's point up on that as well. When you're giving your CV to a recruiter, even though it's through the online interface, you're actually giving it to somebody who is your audience, and that comes back to the sales thing as well. So if you give your CV to someone, it should be how you want to be portrayed. And I think one tip that I could give all students watching today would be, when you're doing your CV, avoid textbook bullet points on your CV. Any student can have customer service skills, but I want to know how you managed to get the customer service skills, and I want to know what impact you had with them. So if you had a part-time job in McDonald's or Burger King, how did you measure your customer service impact there? Like, what were you doing? Were you getting orders out 5 seconds faster? What exactly was it? And that will actually help your recruiter in putting you forward for a sales or services position as well, because you're actually giving the food to your recruiter instead of her or he or she having to go back and look for it. Really, really good tip. Make sure that you don't have textbook answers. Now, I know in some areas in your CV you will have to have kind of more generic stuff, but if you can have on each bullet point an actual impact that you had, or a percentage, or something that was measurable, it would be really, really advantageous.
Okay, brilliant. And Anna, do you have anything that you'd like to add there in terms of tips?
Well, I would say like the most important thing is to understanding the role description and actually the position candidates are applying for. And of course, keeping that in mind, it is important to include all those attributes that are required for this role in the CV. So yeah, as was already said, that if you have customer service experience, please tell us what actually were your responsibilities, what actually you did well in your pure experience in the previous job. So that's how can you contribute here within Google with what you learned so far. This is important for us, not just the bullet points like, okay, customer service experience in this and that job.
Great advice all around here by everybody. Thank you. Okay, so we actually have a few questions in from some of our viewers. So we have one from Ahmed, and he's asking if you could provide some top tips for telephone interviews. So obviously telephone interviews differ somewhat to face-to-face interviews. So Isabel, would you have any top tips when it comes to telephone interviews specifically?
I would say first thing is to be on time, obviously. Second thing is to make sure that the connection is working well. Like, I'm interviewing candidates who can be based in Iraq, who can be based in wherever in the world. So just make sure that we hear you very well, that you are on time, that you're polite, that you understand well how long will be the interview, and that basically if you have any question, you have time to ask them. Because usually for an interview, you will have somebody who is there to test a bit the ground, to see if you understand the job, to see if you want to understand the job. So be honest. Just tell us what did appeal you in this job and why is this job done for you. I think that's the first step we want to understand.
Fantastic. Adam, do you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, so I'll just do maybe more on the sales side. So for a sales phone interview, what we're looking for is sales flair, so how you are perceived on the phone. and having a perceived amount of confidence and persuasion to be able to deal with a sales call, maybe 20 calls a day in Google. So that's what we're looking for. So you might be sitting there going, oh my God, I don't have that. It's okay. There are different ways that you can prepare for it. Number one is if you're the type of person that is very outgoing, extroverted, and can talk to an old lady at a bus stop that you don't know, and what I'd advise you to do there is have some amount of AdWords product knowledge. It's really important that if you're going to be pitching about YouTube or display or search, that you know something about it and that you can build that into your pitch. And as well as that, be able to handle questions that we throw back at you in a confident manner, that you're able to still have control of the call. The other way of it is as well, if you're the type of person that maybe isn't as extroverted, but you're quite good in negotiations, or you're good on the phone anyway, but you mightn't be very outgoing outside of life, which is fine. What you could do there is try and, again, put yourself slightly outside your comfort zone in college or in some area that you can actually test the water in how you get on in trying to convince somebody that you don't know. That's really important, and I think that's probably the top tip I could give for anyone doing a sales interview.
That's a really good tip.
Yeah.
I hope everybody's taking notes as well. Okay, fantastic. So Anna, do you have any top tips for telephone interviews that you could share?
Well, I would say be open and be curious. We like candidates who ask questions. We actually always inform the candidate during a phone interview that there will be time at the end of the phone interview for them to ask questions about the role, about the office, what actually they would like to know, and what they already didn't know from the recruiter. So use this time, use this opportunity. We actually are really happy to answer those questions. And if we speak to a candidate who doesn't ask any questions, we think, okay, so is this person really interested in this role? And of course, get some knowledge about AdWords, at least like the very basic one. Be informed what the role is about, because it may happen that you may get a question, what actually would you improve about one of Google products? And when the candidate answers, actually what bothers me are those ads displayed above the organic search results. We are like, come on, this is actually what we are doing here on a daily basis. So yeah.
That's good. Good tips there, Anna. Thanks a lot. So we have another question. Thank you guys for submitting your questions. We really appreciate it. So this question comes from Jamie in Madrid. Can you tell us some of the challenges that you faced at the beginning of your careers at Google, and how did you overcome those challenges? So that's a really great question. Do we have anyone who'd like to take this question?
Yeah, I can start.
Yeah, sure.
That's a really good question, by the way. Very good question to ask at the end of the interview, just putting that out there. Yeah, it's a really good question. So for me, it probably would have, maybe confidence would have been with me starting off in sales, because I actually worked for a year and a half on the HR side of Google as well, and I moved to sales. So when I moved to sales, it was a very different area, and there was a lot of challenges in terms of a lot of metrics that you were measured against and targets, and then just generally being with a group of 60 people that had very, very good sales skills. So basically what I did to combat that was to reach out to other people that were quite outgoing on the team and very open and were willing to share their sales skills with me in a very informal manner. Now, everybody is willing to share information at Google generally on my team anyway, but I just picked kind of your advocates on the team. So look for people that I generally got on with and see how I could work with them better. So it just so happened then a couple of months down the line, we were all sitting together in a pod. So a pod is a group of 6 people in a sales team. And just from there, building that relationship with the people that are sitting around with you, it was really, really helpful. And it also helps you to network around the sales org as well. So that's one challenge that I had starting off and was able to overcome it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing that, Alan. And what about Anna or Isabel? Have either of you faced any challenges?
I can start like Anna. Like I started in Google 8 years ago, so the product like AdWords already that I was already supporting was already quite different, but it was also quite rich of a product. So the first challenge I think for me and the main one was to actually master the product and be able, as Anna was mentioning, to adapt every day. Like there's not one single day in my career in Google where I don't have to learn something new and to adapt to something unexpected. So I think that was my main challenge when I started here. And the best way to overcome it is actually to ask questions, to be curious, to work as a team. So when you're starting in Google, you're usually assigned what we call a buddy. And a buddy is basically another team member who has been in your shoes not that long ago, had a million questions and didn't dare asking them. So he's actually there because he understands exactly your doubts and which type of challenge you may have. So I think the best way to solve this challenge is actually to ask a million questions, to go to your buddy, and then after a while, basically, you will be the one teaching the others. You will be the one listening to the doubts and the question of other, what we call nooglers, so new Googlers.
Fantastic. Thank you, Isabel. And Anna, what about yourself? Any tips?
Well, maybe what I could share is when I started, I spent about 3 months, my very first 3 months at Google, approving ads our advertisers were submitting. And the biggest challenge for me that times was actually learning as fast as possible all those Google advertising policies, which was really a very difficult task because there were like many pages of exceptions and of exceptions of exceptions. And actually, when I was realizing that from what I will approve actually depends the success or failure of a business, yeah, of an advertiser, I was really afraid of clicking the enter in the system. So that was the biggest challenge at the beginning. And maybe like a smaller thing I can mention, but it was actually something like very internal. When I joined my very first training in Dublin, the so-called Noogler training, I was like, afraid of all those abbreviations people were using. I was like, oh my God, what is this all about? And I was like asking people around, okay, what this abbreviation mean? What that abbreviation mean? But of course, like sooner or later, this won't be, any surprise for you. And everything comes with the time and you learn it. So this is just, just like the stress of the beginner. Nothing more.
Absolutely. It's all a learning curve in any new job, no matter what. So we're getting questions in fast and furious, which is fantastic. So we have a question from, I think it's Murto. Apologies if I'm not pronouncing it correctly. So how long does the hiring process take at Google? So I think I might be able to take that question. So from the point of submitting your application and getting to phone screen stage, from then, it takes about 6 to 8 weeks for the entire process, from application to actually an offer being extended. So I hope that answers your question. And then we also have another question from Maria. And Maria actually says, great insights, which is good. Thanks, Adam and Anna and Isabel. The tips about your experiences are great. What do you value more from the application? Previous work experience or the attitude and willingness to obtain new skills? So which is valued more, previous work experience or the willingness to obtain new skills? What do you value more?
I would say both. And the reason why I'm saying that is the skills and the work experience that you've learned so far should help you acquire new skills. So really, like, previous work experience, like, again, it goes back to the CV question, like what impact did you have? And when I say impact, I don't mean that you went in and shook up the whole business. I mean, like, what measurable impacts did you have no matter what your job was in the past is what I'd be looking for. And based on that, then we'll ask you hypothetical questions or certain questions to put you in the mindset of somebody who's at Google already and test to see what your answers are on obtaining new skills. So I wouldn't be too worried about preparing for those two areas. I would just know your previous work experience and what you did there really well. And I'd also have an idea of what new skills you would like to acquire in the role you're applying for while at Google. So the answer is both.
Okay, so it's both for Adam. Isabel or Anna, do you have anything to add, or do you feel the same as Adam?
Well, I would say the willingness to obtain new skills is more important here, especially here within the services team, because like the experience shows that we have really people with many backgrounds and who were working in a different companies before, not especially in the customer service, but they are really love the way they are working right now. And actually, that was all just a matter of learning this attitude, this new skills. So I would say here we do value the second thing more.
Super. And what about yourself, Isabel? Have we lost Isabel? Okay, so we'll move on anyway.
Yeah.
So I think we might want to wrap up things fairly soon. Is there one piece of advice that you would want to give our viewers in terms of maybe getting into the online digital landscape in terms of maybe for internships or full-time roles? Any piece of advice that you might offer?
Yeah, for the digital landscape, I would say look at what your current hobbies and interests actually are, and how could you add a digital slant on it. So if you're involved in your local football club, or if you play tennis, or you're a real gym bunny, how could you actually add that to the digital sphere if they don't have a presence, or how could you improve it already? That will give you a real edge in going to any interview for an online company, because you're actually interested in the industry, and it will also help you develop your skills as well. For a career at Google, I would back up Anna's point as well about being open to learn new things, and always treating yourself that you can improve every day in your career. I think if you come in with an attitude that I'm great and you don't necessarily want to obtain new skills all the time, it might hamper your performance, and you actually mightn't enjoy your time as much as you would if you thought that you could improve all the time as well.
So you mentioned there about kind of creating a profile that's more digitally orientated. So actually, for those of you watching who may not be aware, we actually have something called the Google Online Marketing Challenge, which I think that is a good thing for students who want to get involved in the digital sector. So student groups of between 3 to 6 student teams are actually given $250 worth of free AdWords spend to manage an AdWords campaign for a small to medium business that does not yet have an account with ourselves or an AdWords account. So that's something that has actually recently launched, and if you Google it, excuse the pun, if you Google the Google Online Marketing Challenge, it'll be the first search return that you'll see, and you can read all about it online. And so that might be something that you should maybe consider doing and taking part in. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And Anna, do you have anything that you'd like to add in terms of tips and advice, just finally?
Well, I would just say include as many information as possible about yourself, what you've done on a professional level, but also what are your hobbies and interests, and what your impact is in the local environment, even with your in a group of your friends, because those are actually things that matter for us, people who are engaged not only professionally but also outside of work. And be creative when it comes to your CV. Just be creative. We really like it. Yeah. We also, like, on one hand, stick to the most important information we are looking for, like what was your impact in that particular role. But also, yeah, creativity is a very important factor. Like we had CVs including links to some videos. It was really cool thing to watch them, and those candidates actually like this creates a special bond between candidate and the interviewer.
So when you talk about impact, do you mean maybe adding metrics to a CV? Is that what you would encourage?
Yeah, definitely yes. Yeah, at Google we love numbers, so it is always welcome.
Okay, fantastic, great. And what about yourself, Isabel? Do you have any last pieces of wisdom that you'd like to share with our audience who are interested in developing a career within the digital landscape? Do you have any one piece of advice for our viewers?
I think when I am interviewing for somebody for Google, I would expect that the person will listen to my question and really answer to that question. I got a lot of candidates in the past, and I run more than 200 interviews in total in 8 years, who are they prepared everything. They prepped, they are ready, they have so much info to give me about themselves. But hey guys, I'm asking you one single simple question. Could you please consider it as a whole and answer to each part of it? And if you have any doubt about what I mean, hey, simply ask me. I'm there for that also. Sometimes also we have candidates who are surprised by our questions. And if you are Googling, basically interviews in Google on the net, you will see a lot of dodgy, strange questions. There are a lot of myths about the type of question you may ask, you may get in Google. I'm not here to trick my candidates, but I may ask you a question where I know there is no simple answer. What I want to see as a manager is how are you going to think about it, ask me a question about it, process, what will be your reasoning, and how are you going to prove your point to me?
Fantastic. So I just want to say a huge thank you to Isabel, Anna and Adam here in the Dublin office for taking part today and for sharing all of your wonderful words of wisdom to our student audience across the Europe, Middle East and Africa market. Just a little reminder to our audience. So we do have a survey link on the event page, and this is our first time doing a Hangout on Air, so we'd really appreciate your feedback that you might have. It's super important, so please do complete that survey. And if you are interested in any of our internship or full-time opportunities, the link is google.com/students/EMEA. And EMEA stands for Europe, Middle East and Africa, in case you were curious. So thank you guys, and it was a pleasure hanging out with everyone today.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.